Christy Villiong of PwC, Annabelle Bishop of Investec, and John Manyike of Old Mutual. Thank you all for joining us. John, let me come to you. Of course, the current interest rate environment, which is a low interest rate environment, is not great for savers like pensioners. So what instruments or what things can people be doing to ensure that they continue to get a bit of return on their money?
Well, I think wise people know that, the best thing is to invest in long-term portfolios, So if I were a consumer, I would definitely speak to a financial advisor about any instruments that will that's geared towards high return, but, obviously taking a long-term view on what I'm putting my money on.
And then, Annabelle, of course, the big issue is that, we have to avoid a situation whereby, we don't have our vaccine program not running in order, and everybody is worried that that's not the case. But other issues as well are structural reforms. It's something that we're constantly talking about. What do you think needs to happen this year to get things going from an economic growth perspective?
Well, Paul, I'm quite cheered by the implementation that we're starting to see from the RP 219 and, of course, Operation Vulindlela as well. But I suppose what I'd really like is quickening of the reforms coming through from Operation Vulindlela. And, of course, the RP 219, while positive, I think would have been better if it had started being implemented in 2019-20 as opposed to now, because a lot of these projects are only coming to fruition towards the end of this year, but most, towards the end of next year. And of course, that does allow us to lift up our longer-term GDP growth trajectory, certainly out even to 2026. We're hoping to, move towards a 3% growth rate on a sustained basis. But of course, the relative situation is these builds are slow and they're quite lengthy. And I think, for me, that really is key, that we actually see a lot of the talk and the plans that are being spoken about happen. Even if you have a look at the mining sector, the Fraser Institute, South Africa's weak outcomes there, I think, again, what I'd also like to see is more cognizance taken by regulators in South Africa, policymakers, of the feedback that comes from the private sector. We don't want to have policy being made in isolation or a difficult process for interaction between the regulators and the private sector. The reality of the situation in South Africa is that the mining sector, for example, which is the key reason why we've had strong deindustrialization over the past couple of decades, indicates that the regulatory burden is just too onerous, particularly for new exploration. So I think, many of these factors I'd like to see quickening to really lift the economic growth rate, the business dynamism in South Africa.
Yeah. Christy, a key catalyst obviously is the support of the SME sector, and of course government along with National Treasury and the Reserve Bank, they set up this bank loan guarantee scheme of 200 billion rand. Only some 20 billion rand has been tapped onto, and many applicants complaining that the rules that the bank set, because it's implemented or administered by the banking sector, they're too rigorous and therefore people can't get the funding that they need. Where do you think we're going wrong, or the banking sector is going wrong? And surely that's an area that could create a lot of good stories if they were to change the rules and allow people to have the money that they need to create jobs.
Yes, the launch of that plan was obviously very much welcomed, and there's been lots of different challenges and different reasons for why it hasn't been as successful as anticipated, and we've seen some revisions to the criteria, we've seen some changes to the methods being used. I think that it is, it's specifically to the past 12 months, an issue for small business to obtain financing, and I guess very critically to get financing to stay afloat. It is a characteristic of the South African economy over the past 2 decades, even longer, where small businesses are challenged by a long list of factors. We know that globally, small business is where jobs are created. It's not the big corporates, it's not the state companies, it's small business that create the most jobs. And having an entrepreneurship culture, and by that I mean the ability to start and operate a business, to register that business, to pay taxes to the government, that whole ecosystem of entrepreneurship is a very vital element for an economy to grow and create jobs. Now, South Africa's got one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. So we need every extra job that we can get. I think it's now more crucial than ever for us to be, I want to say, super friendly towards entrepreneurs, with the provision that this is people that are linked to the formal economy, not just informal traders, people with a little store selling things next to the road. We need small businesses to be created, to be registered, be part of the formal economy, and that's where our jobs recovery is going to come from. And many of the factors are well known about why it's not happening. We have the research, we have the international expertise. But as Annabelle said, we always have a plan and a roadmap, and we love indabas and workshops, but implementation is our biggest challenge. And while things are happening, there are good things happening at the moment. Many of the things have been promised for us 2, 3, 4, 5 years already. So it is a very slow process to get things done. Unfortunately, we need really to accelerate the changes and the support being given to the South African economy at this stage. We needed it yesterday. We can't wait till tomorrow.
Indeed. Christy, thank you very much for your inputs there. Annabelle and John, we've come to the end of the road in terms of the broadcast, but of course the conversation will continue. We've been speaking to Dr. Christy Viljoen, economist at PwC, Annabelle Bishop, chief economist at Investec, and John Manike, the head of financial education at Old Mutual. And that's a wrap from us. SA Today team will have more news for you at the top of the hour. It's a good afternoon from me and the team.